Can you hear us? Good afternoon. Thank you for coming back after lunch. But I have with me Gopal Srinivasan. Now, nobody really better to have this fireside chat with on the evolution of entrepreneurs. Uh, I was lucky to have spent lots of time in Chennai, met Gopal multiple times, and I have some sense of how the apparatus in his brain works. But you have come from a family of entrepreneurship, and you yourself seen at least 50 years of conversations at home and at factories and what you've built over time. You've seen 1.0 of India. India, which had, the license Raj, was almost, as you said it sometimes, anti-entrepreneurial, anti-risk, maintain status quo, just keep the license running. And it's interesting because you have a personal view, you have a business view, and a philosophical view. So, welcome to this session to talk with you about your sense of 2.0. How does the entrepreneur in the new mix start to work?
Thank you, Sudhir, and thank you for doing this. Nice to be back, not only in Hyderabad with old friends, but with an old friend like you from Hyderabad to Chennai, now back in Hyderabad. So nice to be with you. I just think one thing we miss sometimes is the expanse of history. And history, till we know it in India, tells us one thing, that we are always a very capitalistic society. If you read Chanakya, he is fundamentally a capitalistic society in the mind. It's very socialist or humanistic in the heart. This has always been the makeup of India. Then we went into great prosperity. Angus is right up on how India and China were the biggest GDPs. We went into poverty. We went into freedom fighting. We went to anti-capitalism. And now we have come again back to the same credo that entrepreneurs are the nation's freedom fighters. And only they can give us economic, social, and Atmanirbhar freedom. So it's really nice to see the cycle rotating again and again and again is how I look at it. So we are actually in a rotating cycle. So I don't think there was a 1.0 and a 2.0. The numbers just come like a beautiful Ferris wheel is how I see it actually.
That's very interesting. We are entering, it was only in 2016, I'm told, that the word start-up actually entered the lexicon for government of India. As we see ourselves fast forward, when we turn 100 in 2047, so let's say another 50 years, we have a lot of 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, aspiring entrepreneurs over here, and they will probably be sitting here, sooner than later, running the Thai chapters, etc. How do you see, in that context, as the next 50 years break out, to give entrepreneurs a sense for how should they evolve as individuals, as their enterprises, in what is likely to be a very different India, potentially, over the next 50 years?
Clearly, every single person has written this saying, this is in the Indian decade, or this is the Indian 2 decades. We'll hit 20 trillion in 2047. That is, I think, going to happen regardless of anything else that happens. At least I believe that. The question, I think, for entrepreneurs is what kind of model they should adopt. What is the dark matter of India? If you remember the 2006 speech in Harvard, where they referred to the dark matter of America. Somehow that will make America survive. Doesn't matter GFC, doesn't matter Trump, doesn't matter whatever. But the dark matter holds us together. I think we should probe deeply as to what is our dark matter as Indians. Because that is what will define entrepreneurship for the next 25 years to 2047. I see 3 things. The first is that the greatest inspiration, which was for me when I started my career, and the greatest inspiration for young people I meet today is a sense of meaning they get by making India better. It is no longer the real entrepreneurs who are going to change this country are the ones who believe that India will be different, that 20% of India, 200, 300 million people who are still BPL, will be transformed. That India has given birth to them, given them opportunities, given them the IIT seat, like my son has. I see the IIT Bombay buzz. India has gifted all this to them, and they want to make a meaning of their work. I see that as one clear facet. The second clear facet I see is, when have we seen talent of this level? It is just amazing everywhere you go today in India. That story, India's Got Talent, is not a TV show. It's actually a factual byline for this country today. You and I grew up at a time where talent was scarce or even invisible. Today, talent is ubiquitous. So I just think that's the second big difference that is going to redefine entrepreneurship. So we just saw Gaurav Kumar here. I think he's left. He's one of the companies we get to partner with. Every whiteboarding conversation, brainstorming conversation, for example, he comes every morning at Sunday at 9:30 a.m. in Zoom for a half an hour call, like clockwork, right? The aspiration for them is not bounded by what we believe was possible. For them, the impossible, what we thought, is quite ordinary. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. But with this inspiration of India, with the availability of talent, I see that they have unbounded imagination about what difference that they can make. And it's not hubris. It's grounded in a sense of meaning that they have. I see these three as a really, really big traits in India. So I feel today entrepreneurs are no longer stuck by this Western idea. What are you passionate about? Right? I hope it's sports and the football game. But rather, what are they good at naturally? After all, when basically it says in the Gita, Swadharme nidhinam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. What are you naturally good at? You pursue that, learn to like it, and you will become passionate about it. What are you not good at? Your paradharma, avoid it. It will give you fear even if you do it well for a short while. I see the absorption of much more of Indian spirit. I never had it. Today, they really are far more deeply Indian. And I think that dharmic entrepreneurship, if I use a very strong expression, and you could say I'm exaggerating, and perhaps I am, but it is there in presence, will actually define what these people will do as entrepreneurs.
Fascinating. I mean, I think you touch an interesting point, because for us at early stage, as early stage investors at Celesta, we see them at the time when they're still crafting or seeking to shape shift and play into the future. And I like what you're just saying. For us now, SME is actually sustainable, meaningful, and exceptional.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah. So that becomes a certain trait that you sort of nurture. And as a significant player in private equity and your voice in the industry, selection criteria is an interesting place where capital and talent meet, and it's sort of exercised in some manner of speak at different stages of building your enterprise. And I've gone through how TVS you've crafted over the last 10, 12 years. Right from the beginning, you set up certain methods. When we walked into your office, it was very disciplined in its execution. Just even running the fact that you had your office, the way you ran it. And you've got your 5E, and it's good for us to listen to. How do you look at these today? Are these still contextual? Are these values lasting enough? Do you really find people thinking EBITDA positive? You rolled that out as a requirement very early. You said you have to be capital efficient. There was no way we were going to see entrepreneurs if you're not capital efficient. Do those mantras survive in 2.0?
Great question. Actually, now everybody comes and tells me on their own that they're going to be EBITDA positive. I don't have to answer the question anymore. So now it's anyway the standard mantra in the market. But I think for us, in addition to basically exceptional execution skills, and as an entrepreneur, obviously EBITDA positive tendency, being efficient, there's a path of exitability that can be made to be visible. We now use a modified version of it, what we call our AAA framework, right? And so our AAA, our basis is that we are underwriting as growth equity or venture capitalists. I see venture capitalists in the audience. We are underwriting 10, 20-year outcomes. The only thing you know about 10 or 20 years is you don't know. Nothing else you know, actually. This is only known, only truth, actually. Right? 20 years down the road, business, India, macro, what will be the equity risk premiums in the public market? Nobody knows. So what we try and do is we just focus singularly on the team. And for us, the first stay is that execution ability, right? Or actually the first stage is ambition, right? The person is not bounded by a vision. It's not hubristic. It's a realistic ambition. Second is that basically people who have the ability to execute evidenced of execution. It could sometimes be from school and college onwards. The third one is ability to attract and retain and make great teams perform. We are stuck with the idea that the old entrepreneurs I knew who were singularly good at everything they would do every single thing in the company. In fact, I see Amit there in the audience, Amit Doshi, Amit Mehta, and we were discussing another good entrepreneur, very successful in his time, who has faded away now. Because they were not able to attract and retain the talent. Because India is built on that one single story, other than the India growth story, is the talent story. So the 3 A's is what we look at. We call the AAA framework. Typically, before an investment, we would at least do outside the firm what we call our 1080. That is 360 is the view inside that company, 360 of the view outside that company, and 360 of the view inside our firm. So as we know, 1080 is high definition, right? Maybe we should make 4K for the next one, but right now it's 1080. We do, I would say 60 to 80 calls, 1 hour minimum calls, before we're able to come to a point where we get enough pattern recognition, we're diminishing margin returns. I think you don't know the future of India. You don't know how the digital infrastructure is going to play out. You don't know how the regulators are changing the game with new digital stacks. Today I was in Erda in the morning, and they were talking about Bima Sugam and how it's going to change the industry and how you're going to be like a share. You can create a depository in which your insurance premium can be kept, and you can shift your insurance policy to another by just a click, like selling a share or transferring a share, right? So you can basically deport your agent and get a new agent. So we don't know all that. So we think the future is very bright. Therefore, better to focus on this AAA framework and find where people have spikes, whether it's an execution, whether it's an ambition, or whether it's an ability to attract and make great people work, and bet on that. That's really how we shifted. But we are purely practically in financial services now, Sudhir. Yeah. So in some sense, we also have a very, very good connectivity system. We have invested so far in this fund about 1,300 to 1,400 crores only in financial services, and that too very little in NBFCs. A lot of it in insurance, a lot of it in digital banking infrastructure.
Fascinating. Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to what I think, we used to be taught about introverts, extroverts, and entrepreneurs were supposed to be extroverts in the old lingua franca. There's a whole new shift in India sort of leading the interoperable open stack, if you may, which is very sort of different from the IP obsession that the Occidentals brought to bear and have actually generated profit from that. India gets into a new infrastructure, which is digital infrastructure, digital public goods available to every entrepreneur here. It doesn't matter. You have to just be SME, not small and medium, but sustainable, meaningful, and exceptional. And you're allowing yourself now to sort of leverage ONDC, open network, OCN, open credit, aggregators, account aggregators, which data will be made available to you. The edge stack, in the way it's been moved, its private participation can now easily lead innovatively on top of that. The health stack. And UPI, of course, is folklore now, globally. We do 40% of global transactions in India. This changes, in my mind, from just being an entrepreneur, which is often inward-looking. You have your view, your vision, your mission, or your values, but are now going to be pushed into a world which is ecosystemic, which means you have an opportunity to catapult moves. And so that notion of an evolving entrepreneur model would be an extrapreneur. Because unless you embrace the extraneous or the exogenous into building a company or building yourself, it's very different. And what are your thoughts on these open stacks, like you just talked about Bima Sugam? It will be an evolution, it's not a revolution, but almost going to reset for the large, the incumbent, as well as the opportunity for the entrepreneur.
So the way I look at it is that, as human beings, right, we are born with interoperable APIs built into our mind. We can read, we can discuss, we can experience, in Indian philosophy, pratyaksha or aparoksha jnana, which is the experience which gives you direct knowledge, gives you inferences, is most important, right? So we are born with APIs. In some sense, I see this digital public infrastructure as replicating that for a company, what is available for a human being, right? So in some sense, I think it's a very natural phenomena. Nobody invented it like China, and no state regulated it. The government's move to make this public good, I think, is where the higher cause has been seen by the Indian people collectively. No individual made that call. It is the soul of India, right? So in some sense, the fact that we made it for the public good, I think empowers us. Today in G20, every day the discussion is how can we port our public digital infrastructure to Egypt, right? Should it go along with lawyers, along with startups, along with NGOs, along with dispute resolution professionals, along with regulators? Because you cannot just send a digital infrastructure. It has to say like the US 7th Fleet, you know, they have
Yeah.
barbers and dancers and musicians, which also go along with the aircraft fighters, right? So I think that idea of making it public good is a big change in India. I really think the humanistic approach of India is how this digital infrastructure looks like. Now, of course, regulators are competing with each other to outdo each other on the digital infrastructure, which I think is good. Obviously, we should be realistic that many of them will not succeed. Some of them will partially succeed, and some of them will greatly succeed, which is, I think, quite fine because, I mean, the entire philosophy in India is only a history of failure. So it's about how to cope with failures. So this is a great time, I think, for us to exploit these opportunities. The main purpose, though, if you ask me, Sudhir, is this has to serve that 30 million people, that 30% of the people,
Yeah.
the 20%, 30 million, whatever, 300 million
300
people,
million.
60 families, some people say it's 270 million, whatever be the number. That group cannot be left behind because income disparity, creating valuation should never be the objective. Building great businesses and let people tell you what the value is, which is what the public market looks like, right? That I think is very important. Just remember one thing, we have 18% of the people in the world. We have 4% of the world's water. We have 2% of the world's land mass. If we consumed that 14 or 17 tons per person like America consumes as against our 1.4 or whatever, some that range of numbers, you will require one brand new planet Earth to support just India if we behave like Americans. So what we should not do is behave like them in terms of consumption. There are many good things to learn from them. Yeah. So when I look at this digital infrastructure, I see it as a meaningful way where India can stay in smaller towns a little bit more, that migration from 30 to 35% urban to 50% urban can be a bit slowed down, and that fundamentally a consumption of carbon, if I were to put it like money, I have to take carbon as the other way to account for consumption, has to be managed because we cannot afford to go even to Europe level.
Absolutely.
And that, unless Elon Musk discovers this planet and we are able to all move there, where are we going to consume from with just 2% of the world's land and 4% of the water? That bothers me no end. And I think entrepreneurs solving problems in finance or insurance or any kind of software product in business are all going to help in their own way. It's not that you have to only do sustainability.
Very fascinating. So let me jump from the India scenario that we've just talked about, and India as a context. But I think the opportunity for entrepreneurs to be global ab initio is like never before. If you look at talent pools, you can almost, rather than the old idiom of let's do things like a multinational, which is you prove yourself in one nation, then you go pick another nation, so on and so forth. But today, it's very different. We backed a young team, 26-year-olds, and day one, he was recruiting the graphic specialist from Paris, but the algorithm writer from Romania. So you can build transnational teams. You can be global day one. That's the opportunity set. But comes with it volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the geopolitics of the world. You're sitting in a global pot, which I don't know whether you're seeing our education system for entrepreneurs, really giving them that blend of thought. And when you want to be a global entrepreneur, what are you supposed to know? How much do you know about international relations, about national security, jurisdiction, so on and so forth? And therefore, in the 2.0 world, as entrepreneurs become global from day one or day zero, how do you see crafting these entrepreneurs?
You know, that everybody has written a piece about out of the top 20 tech companies, so many people are Indian. Our own Satya from Hyderabad is doing such a fabulous job in Microsoft, Shantanu and Adobe and so on and so forth, our own Sundar Pichai, etc. I just want to ask only one question to all of us, right? You go to Europe, there is no migration, there is no movement of labor. The Dutch want to be in Holland largely and they don't want to go to Italy and vice versa. You go to America, the top talent freely moves. When auto industry boomed, they went to Detroit. When electronics industry boomed, they moved to some other place. When tech industry boomed, they went to California and so on and so forth. But come to India, you see something very unique, and this is pointed to me by a Dutch economist who basically said India is one of the few nations in the world outside China where people move at all levels. In Chennai, you go, all our cooks are Biharis or Nepalis. So it's not just CEOs. We know how to cross-work across people. We'll make fun, we'll say we are Dravidian, we are Tamil, we are this, we are that, but we will have only, surrounding us, only North Indians. So no problem, right? When Lord Rama had to succeed, Hanuman had to come from this part of the world only. So this is a country where ability to have labor mobility in a pure economic sense across strata is very high. Till we were invaded and colonized in the 11th century, onwards in a creeping way till 21st century when the colonizers left, we were always doing international trade, right? Ponniyin Selvan's story of Cholas going to Indonesia or the kings of Orissa going to Sri Lanka or before that the Pallavas going to Indonesia is all real. We were always global. Why do we think that's something new for us? It is only when we were enslaved by the invaders that we lost that tendency because invaders did not want us to be global. So I actually feel looking at the Indian CEO success, looking at our labor mobility, looking at this digital world where everything can be transacted from wherever we are, the fact that we're leading in technology in some areas, at least good enough in public digital infrastructure, and our inherent ability to work across cultures is something we should see as a gift. We should never, and we should always see it the Indian way, which is the humility, a natural state, because people are not humble or ignorant. When somebody says, I am humbled, I want to ask them, were you ignorant before? So that should be our constant natural state. And of course, that with age it becomes easier because we got kicked often enough, right? So it's easy to say it when it's my age. But the thing is, we are naturally multicultural, right? That I think is important. Hyderabad is a great example of the multiculturalism. It's a shining example.
सारा कुछ इधर ही चलता. Before I leave it up for some questions from the floor, one last question. Governance. That's one of your favorite areas that I've heard you multiple times. You know, in entrepreneurship, we jump in, we take risks, we do whatever is required. And often we bake in risk and governance a little later in the journey. You believe that the evolution of the new gen entrepreneur is going to be different? Are they going to be more multidimensional to the idea of imposed governance where required, and self-governance, of course, as an internal compass?
I would say two things, right? At least my limited knowledge. We need, if you remember, it was Keynes who said, give me 100 years of animal spirits and only we'll develop the world, right? I don't think that's the right approach. You need the exuberance, ambition, and the inexperience of younger people. And we only invest in people with a minimum of 10 years experience because that's the time when they gather that experience, right? We don't want to bet on that 1 in a billion guy who was 24 and succeeded. We'd rather bet on the 1 in 100 million or 1 in a million rather than that. But I think the important thing is that you need that energy. But what is India all about? India is about the system of mentorship. We are the only country where we have hierarchicized the gurus. There is guru, there is rishi on top, there is an acharya below, then there is an upadhyaya somewhere below that, right? So we have people available, and if we can combine that blend using the natural system of respect that we are brought up with in India, the respect for knowledge. We respect people not because they're old. We respect people because they've gone through a very tough time, and that we respect the experiences that they have more than anything else. I think that blend is necessary. If we find everything, everybody is going to be Ashtavadhani. No, it's not going to work. So you need that teamwork between the old India, the middle-aged India, the young India, is what I'm thinking, that we will go back to our basics, go back to our system of mentorship, where the youth fight the wars and win, but there are older people to guide them. That combination will be unstoppable, and India has that combination. Today, the startup industry is born from the IT services industry. It's a great example of exactly how that panned out.
Fantastic, Gopal. Thank you so much for these. If we have time, then we can take a question or two from the audience. Do we have mics, or is that a norm here, or we can wrap? No? Any questions? No, okay, fine.
I just, in wrapping
What,
it,
what would you wrap up with?
yeah, I just want to urge everybody who's an entrepreneur, is to go back to the strengths of India and build on it with the strengths of the world. So go back to your whatever practice gives you the spiritual strength, whether it's Vedanta, whether it's your meditation, whether it's your Gurukulam. That I think is very, very important. When Sri Krishna urges you, this is yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhiya siddhiyo samabhutva samatvam yoga muchate. The first three lines are just statement of fact. Fourth line, samatvam, that equanimity that comes from our traditions. And we need to discover that equanimity in ourselves, only possible if we follow what we are good at, not what we are passionate at. So when people tell me I'm excited and I'm passionate, I'll say, okay, relax. When you're better, I'll come and see you. Right? Get back to samatvam. Because when you do something with the higher cause, yogastha kuru karmani, you will get samatvam. When you follow the higher cause. Higher cause is the source of energy and strength. I would think Indian entrepreneurs who have meaning in their life, who want to take their 300 million brothers and sisters from poverty, if that inspires them, nothing in the entire world can stop them. And that's what inspired me to start. When I left the TVS family business, started doing 8 companies from the TVS group on my own. There's only one objective, and my guru told me, you are here because India has given you this opportunity. Tell me what you have done for India. I want to know now. His name was C.K. Prahalad. It was in the corridor of University of Michigan, just where we heard about his name. He said, what are you going to do for India? Your family is strong because of India. Have you done anything for India? I am sure you must have thought about it. Come to me with your one-page note. Obviously, I had not either thought about it, neither did I have a one-page note. But I think that inspiration is what I would urge all Indian entrepreneurs to seek.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Great talking to you.
Thank you, Sudhir.
As
Thank you
always.
so much.